Welcome everyone. This short class is about the psoas, lengthening the front of the hips. Psoas, hip flexor muscle group. Our psoas are directly related to fight, flight, or freeze, so the response of our sympathetic nervous system. So the idea here is that we're allowing ourselves to let go and release some of the tension in the psoas, because remember, tension, stress makes us feel depressed. That just means we're not in the present moment. And a lot of what we're gonna do is work on engaging of the core to help lengthen the front of the hips. So the psoas muscles today are the focus, a lot of extension of the hip to stretch the psoas in these hip flexors, all right? So I'm gonna have you all started in a child's pose. And as you go into your child's pose, let the knees go really wide, maybe even as wide as your mat. And let your head and neck just relax. Start to breathe down into your lower belly, down into the pelvis and the front of the hips. So letting everything begin to soften a bit. Allowing the breath to deepen in and out through the nose. And we'll get right to it. Coming up nice and slow into a cat. Bring your knees under your hips, press into your palms round your back. And then counter that. Keep pressing down into the ground as you go into a cow. Instead of letting your chest collapse, keep pulling the heart forward, lifting up through the crown of the head, pulling through the heart, extending of the spine. And then we'll find our neutral spine. We all are familiar with this leg. We're going to press into the palms so the shoulder blades spread. I'm going to take my gaze down, so flat back of the neck, and then start to pull in through the lower ribs, naturally taking the pelvis from an anterior tilt to a neutral pelvis position. So the lower ribs draw in, pressing into the palms, activating the lats and the serratus and the pecs. Now what we'll do from here is straighten the right leg. I like to go ball the foot on the mat. And I'll take my hands to my solar plexus area, pulling in, and then lift the right foot just a little bit. Activating the glute, I'll place the left hand down and cross the right foot off the left side of the mat. Now bring the right hip point down a little bit as you look over the left shoulder. This is going to stretch the TFL in the front of the hip. Good. We'll come back around to center. I'm going to place that foot down on the ground, and I'm going to pivot my left foot out as my right heel comes down. So as I open up, I'll open up the chest, and then I'll start to press the pelvis forward. Now that right hand is going to reach toward the wall and then out in front. And the recurring theme that we're going to be doing, and I'll show you on both sides, is that bottom ribs, and your top hip are trying to come together in the front and kiss. And you're pressing into the top of the left foot, rooted through the outer edge of the back, and then we'll come back down to the mat, tabletop position. We're going to return to this similar movement in a later sequence. So left leg extends, and just to make sure I keep level pelvis and core engaged, hands to the solar plexus area, left foot lifts, activating the glute. I'll place my right hand down, cross the left foot off, push, lowering left hip, looking over right shoulder. Bringing it back to the mat, leg stays straight. Spinning it flat, your right foot will naturally spin off to the side, and I'll go left hand up first. Okay? Then I like to reach. This gets the shoulder blade to wrap forward around the rib cage as I extend overhead. And it's left bottom ribs, left hip point, trying to kiss and squeeze as I'm pressing my pelvis forward. Good. Bringing it back around, finding a tabletop position, straight legs, pressing the earth away, pulling in through lower ribs, back of head lifts, exhale all the way down to the chest, and notice I don't let my shoulders touch the mat. The shoulders stay pulled back. Okay? I'm going to extend my left arm out to the side, bend the right knee, step over top. Walking right foot in as I press knee out. This can create a stretch for the hip for some of us. Stretch for the pec as well. We'll come back around, switch it out to the other side. Because of limiting space, I'm going to bend my elbow, which makes it more of a stretch for the pec as well. So you have that option, right? If the elbow's bent, it's more for the pec. If the elbow is extended, it's more for the shoulder. Coming back to center now, I'll bring my hands in, thumbs by the ribs. I like to make sure my pinky fingers are on the edge of my mat, shoulders rolling back into my first cobra pose. Pressing the pubic bone down to the floor, looking left and right. And I'm going to sit back, keeping my knees where they're at into a child's pose. And then I'll slowly begin to rise, bringing the hands to the front of the thighs. And the reason I do that is to keep everything tight and to remember to bring my thighs forward as I reach up. And as I reach up, my ribs stay in that strong engagement, getting a nice stretch, pressing the thighs, subtle, slight back bend, and then exhale, bringing it right back down. I'll come up into a tabletop and then sit back into a downward facing dog. Now this can become a flow. So I will, like a wave, come forward to a plank. Exhale, lower all the way to the ground. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, child's pose. Hands to thighs as I rise, and I take that big inhale breath, arms up overhead, thumbs back. Exhale, bowing toward the mat. Coming up, inhale, tabletop. Exhale to a downward dog. We'll go one more time. Inhale like a wave. Just keep it tight. Exhale, bottom plank. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, child's. Hands on thighs, taking that big inhale, thighs press. Arms up overhead. Exhale, bowing right back down. Hands stay way out in front of me as I inhale to a tabletop and exhale to a downward dog. Great, and what we'll do next is we'll do a salutation variation. It's kind of like a sun A, B combination. So we'll take the right leg up, allowing the hips to stack, stretching, open the front of the hip, and then stepping up into a runner's lunge position. So that was the right psoas. Now we're moving to the left. Let the hips come down. Left knee touches the ground. Top of left foot pressing down. I like the concept of curling up. So I round my back, pull the hip points up, tailbone tuck, hands come up, anjaneyasana. A little squeeze of that front hamstring, and then hands come to the mat. I'm gonna step up. As I step up, my feet are slightly apart, lifting of the heart, lengthening of the spine, and then exhale, folding forward. Inhale, rising up. Exhale, I'm gonna bring my hands to my hips. So I'll make sure I'm pressing through the outer edges of my feet. Elbows are gonna squeeze behind, pelvis down, and I press those thighs forward, lift the chin, and then exhale, hinging at the hips, coming down into it. Inhale, fingertips, half lift. Exhale, bottom of push-up, jumper step. Inhale, I go cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Left leg's gonna lift, bending the knee, stacking open that hip, stretching the front of left thigh until I step up, and then now we're moving to the right. I like the pelvis to go down first, then the knee. And remember, the action is curling, tailbone tucking as you pull it up. Right foot pressing into the mat. Using left hamstring to pull me forward into the stretch. Hands to the mat. Now I take that step with an inhale breath. Lift the chest. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, rise. Exhale, hands to the hips. Press the hips forward, lift the chest. Inhale, breath. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, fingertips. Exhale, bottom of push-up, jumper step. Inhales up. Exhales down. So you can do that up to 3 to 5 rounds on each side and make it a flow. Go with it a couple times. And then we're gonna move on. So again, if you wanna take the time to do that, you definitely can. But we're gonna move on to the next thing. Staying with the psoas focus on this entire class. Right leg goes back. I'm gonna keep my hips squared this time. And then I'll step to right, or bring knee to chest. This is gonna be the first movement we're gonna do. The knee goes to the chest, and I'm gonna let that knee come down. Just like we did in our warm-up sequence, I spin the foot out, reach up with my inhale, come forward in front, and then extend left ribs, left hip, squeezing like they're gonna kiss. Left hand will come down. Now, that right foot, the right hip is gonna pivot over top, and I sit. The reason I like to sit is to make sure I get that left shoulder back in better alignment. Then I lift onto the ball, the right foot, palm facing down, pressing the left hip, lengthening the front of that left thigh. Coming back around, we're not done yet. Right knee touches right shin to the mat. Just like we did at the beginning of class, I'm gonna pull in and lift. Now this time, I bend and grab and kick the foot back. Pressing into the hand, lifting the chest. Nice deep breaths. As I let it go, right hand goes down, left leg extends and toes touch the ground. Now I send that right leg up to the sky, and I'll step to right hand and spin the back foot flat and come into a warrior one. But before I come up, the same concept, tail tuck. You can see what's happening with my pelvis. I'm tucking the tailbone down, I'm letting the spine round, and I rise. All right, and I really want to focus on pulling in through the ribs, so we're avoiding the back bend at the beginning, minimize the back bend when we begin, so we can get deeper in the back bend toward the end by staying engaged. I like to bring the palms together, and then hands to the mat. Okay, now I'll take that right leg, send it up and back one more time. I'm gonna bring my right knee over to my right wrist and come into a pigeon. Propping up on the fingertips, getting spinal extension at the same time, pulling the navel point toward the spine. Then we're gonna reach back with the left hand, grab for the quadricep stretch. Good, and as I let that go, I'll just go back to my down dog split. So we're resetting everything and then stepping now to the thumb into the runner's lunge. The back knee's gonna bend. Now I take a shorter stance, about 1 inch, very short. And then I bend the back knee, the short change of distance. Back knee bends, tail tucks. So the modified crescent lunge, exaggerating the curl up. I'm gonna curl, curl, curl as I rise. This stacks up my spine, lower ribs pulling in, tailbone lengthening down. Now I'm gonna reach out as I extend the back leg straight and then place the left hand down on the ground. Rotating the chest, reaching up with the right hand, firming up that back leg, glute and quadricep. Now I'm gonna bring my right hand down. I'm gonna go fingertips on the outside. If you got a block, it'd be good for that. The back foot's gonna spin flat. I'll reach up with my left hand, right knee pressing to the inside of my right arm. And keeping with the theme, I'm gonna take that reach and extend, pinch and squeeze. That extended side angle. I'm gonna come out of it, just get the counter stretch and extend my reverse triangle. Coming forward, you can imagine how this is gonna be. I'm gonna go into my triangle, same concept happening. Reach and extend, bottom ribs pulling in, bottom shoulder drawing back. One more deep breath. And then I'm gonna bring left hand to the mat and pivot onto the ball of my back foot. So now I have a runner's stance, a little prep for the hamstring, although that's not gonna be the main focus here. I'm gonna bend the right knee and lower the back knee down on the mat. Now, this is where a block will come in handy, or any sort of support. We're gonna go right foot flat. I'm gonna straighten into my front leg, keeping the front foot flat. Now my opposite hand, right hand's gonna reach back, left hand's gonna go up. So if you have the space, you can go to the foot, to the ankle, to the calf, or again, a block underneath the right hand. Leaving out of that, bend the right knee, turn the right foot out 45 degrees. I like foot flat. The reason for that, if we roll to the outer edge of the ankle, we're creating laxity in the ligaments of the joint. We don't want those to stretch. So I keep the foot flat, reaching back to grab, nice deep stretch. Foot kicking back. Left shoulder drawing back, heart open. Downward facing dog, there it is. Okay, so from the beginning, other side. Left leg comes up, I crunch to the chest, palms press. I bring the knee down, back foot flat. As that back hip comes down, my hip opens and my knee pivots out. I'll reach up, knitting of the ribs, reach in front of me, and then out to the side. The next piece is coming around, right hand down, that left foot, my hip, it's a big movement here, coming all the way around, sitting down. Notice what happens to the shoulder. When we come around, that shoulder might want to come forward. I want to make sure we draw it back, opening the front of the chest, keeping the shoulder stacked as I lift. Getting the right right hip up, stretching that right thigh. And I'm gonna bring it around and set the left knee down on the ground, all the shin. Right foot lifts, left hand, right foot, give that kick. I'm pushing into the earth to find a bit of a lift. Don't let the ribs collapse, the belly drop to the mat, keep it in. Left hand comes down, right leg straight, touch the ground, and then left leg to the sky. Starting with our warrior one, back foot flat. I take a slightly wider and shorter stance. I'm gonna curl, you can see the tail tuck. I curl up, pulling in through the ribs. I'm minimizing the back bend here. I'll bring the hands to the mat, take the left leg back, clear it out, and then bring it through, pigeon on the left. On the fingertips, lifting the chest. So it's a back bend, but I'm not dumping into the back because I pull my belly in. Then I can reach and grab. This is the only one where we reach back and grab where it's the same side. I'm gonna release, one more time, reset, and then take my step into my runners. Now, shortening the stance just a little, 1 inch, bending the back knee real deep, tailbone tucking. Slowly curl, like you're doing the opposite of a crunch. You're curling up, stacking the spine until you're a strong straight line, everything in tight. Then I'll straighten the back leg, engage, and reach. Right hand, left hand come down, and then I open the chest, turning the ribs, left hip drawing back, back leg super active. Left hand coming down to the outside, maybe a block. Back foot flat. I push my knee into my bicep as I open up the chest. Coming around and reaching out. Right ribs, right hip, try to kiss. And then coming out of this, I'll reverse my triangle just to get the length in and the space made. And then triangle. Sometimes I shorten my stance, coming forward here. Taking the reach, bottom shoulder drawing back, active in the transverse abs. We're gonna bring it down, right hand to the mat. Back foot pivots so you're in a modified stretch. One more breath for the hamstring. And then lower to the back knee. Top of right foot pressing, left leg straightening. Because of previous injury in my ankle, I can't get the foot quite so flat. I bring it in a little bit, try to keep the big toe down. Now it's the left hand that's reaching back and the right arm that's reaching up. And don't allow your butt to sit back so there's a crease in the hips. Press the pelvis forward as you reach. And then you're falling mindfully forward, foot out, but not outer edge. I don't want to stretch the ligaments on the outer ankle. I can reach back, kick and grab. I'm kicking away and outward, not inward, outward and away. Good, releasing that. Left hand to the mat, downward facing dog. Okay. So essentially, this would be the peak pose. We're going to do one at a time on each side, and then we'll kind of bring it down for the last couple stretches. So right leg lifts, I step forward, runners. Now, I love this as a transitional posture and a way to add a little extra strength and stability. Coming directly into Shiva squat. I'm going to go hands to heart and knee inside, but I don't let my knees touch, keeping level hips the best that I can. Nice flat back. I'll reach with my right hand to grab, and slowly begin to rise. So I've got the revolved dancer. I'm kicking and lifting all at the same time. What I notice happening for a lot of people is the knee goes out to the side when people go into dancer. We want to keep that knee midline of the body as I kick it back. Ideally, the left toes of the back foot are pointing up. So that's one of the modifications I like to make. We're going to bring it down. You can keep a hold of the foot, draw the shoulder back, add a little extra stretch, and then release. What we'll do from here, finding a runner's lunge, I'm gonna lower the back knee, sit all the way back. I'm gonna adjust here just a little bit on the mat. I like to move the calf to the side, and I'll go hero recline. Those of you that have the space and can do it, lie flat, ribs in, always. Really try to get as flat as you can. You can also put blocks underneath. The way to modify this, if you have a compromised knee, is to roll to the outer hip, reach back and grab. You're still gonna get the stretch in the hip flexor and the quadricep with less of a knee flexion bend. Okay, great. Transition out to down dog. All right, left leg now, stepping forward. Adding this strength transitional component here right into Shiva stance. Left hip pulling back, flat back, level pelvis, reach and grab, slowly come to stand. Okay, and remember, we're not letting the leg flare to the side. I'm going straight behind. So not out, that twists us, we're gonna keep squared. When we come out of this, standing split, you hold it, give it a kick. Now what tends to happen is the stacking of the hip. Let's square those hips and watch my shoulder, I draw it back. Then I can step, runner's lunge, knee to the mat, sit back. You want to move the flesh of the calf to the side, and then you can go into that hero reclined. Remember the modification, rolling to the side, reaching to grab, so there's less of flexion and pressure on the knee. If you can lie flat, it's all about those ribs, pulling them in. Good, slowly coming up. From here, go feet to the front. Lie on our backs for a bridge. Clearly, anytime we're stretching and opening the psoas, it's an invitation for deeper back bending. One of the pieces we'll do right now, this is just the counter, and we'll go into another back bend camel. So I'm gonna go into my bridge. Ribs are pulling to the floor, activating the core, and then lifting the pelvis up, stretching the front of the body. Knees, little squeeze. And you can go through a few rounds of back bends as you like, as you feel ready. Hands go up to come out, so my shoulder blades spread. And then I pull down using my core to bring me to the floor, my middle back, my lower back, and then the butt to the mat. Okay, half baby, kind of loosen up the hips a little bit. And then we'll come to our finishing. Finishing would be obviously a Shavasana, but this is a Psoas focused sequence. And many of you have seen me, I'm kind of tying together some of the other videos of the reclined camel pose. And the idea here is that we're not allowing our ribs to go forward, which is our future, which is tension and stress, or our shoulder blades to pull back, which is our past where we're depressed. We pull everything into the present moment in full engagement, tops of the feet pressing, thighs are forward, straight line. I keep my gaze forward, and I'm gonna recline. I'm gonna go back as far as I possibly can, and then rise back up. And you're just gonna play with that edge. This is the prep for the back bend, so we're going back, and coming up. I don't wanna change the shape here. I don't wanna bend at the waist. It's all in from the knees. 5 of those, and then you'll go into your camel pose. Full expression. I go with my toes curled underneath to grab my feet, and the focus is thighs forward, heart lifting. And I like to lift the chin instead of drop my head. I lift and then extend the spine. Big lion's breath, tongue all the way out. Coming back down, taking some few breaths. This would be a great opportunity. Add extra back bends. Countering slowly, mindfully, with a forward fold of your choice. I'm just gonna go with a very relaxed, bound angle. You can make it an active stretch if you like. Legs in front, legs wide. Just the countering of the back bend, the flexion of the spine. And then, taking some time to rest. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rest with my knees bent, really making sure everything softens. And when I allow those hip flexors to continue to relax, then I can extend the legs out. All right. So this sequence was the focus on the psoas. Psoas muscle, directly related to fight, flight, or freeze. Once we can start to release some of that, we start to find more peace in our bodies. And the idea is that length can be created through engagement, and engagement in the core is so important. Feel free to add to this class, add extra reps, add extra flows, add extra back bends, etc.